My daughter helped cover my wife's cheating. I disowned her, exposed the affair, and divorced my wife. I was devastated when I found out my wife had been in bed with another man twice and was about to do it again. I've read about the overwhelming emotions that hit a person when they realize their once solid and reliable marriage is now just a story. When the emotional storm settled, my marriage was unrecognizable. Everything was gone. Trust, respect, admiration, concern, and love had all disappeared. All that remained was devastation, pushing me to give up and walk away. I wanted to end my marriage. There was nothing worth saving. My wife had turned our life into a pile of garbage. Susie and I had a bad fight about remodeling our living room. She thought the furniture was old and wanted to redecorate, but I explained it was only 2 years old, expensive, and not worth replacing. She insisted on something new, and I may have made a mistake by suggesting she was tired of me. She sarcastically said she might go to bed with someone else, and in anger, I shouted that she should decide what she wants but not expect me to wait for her. When she mentioned she should have married Bill instead of me, I got furious, yelled that I never wanted to hear his name again, and refused to buy new furniture. The argument ended, and I left for the club to cool down. Bill had always been my main rival, the golden boy in our community. He once had his eye on my wife, but she chose me. Though they met during a short separation, he almost succeeded in winning her over. Despite my hard work and success, Bill's seemingly effortless prosperity made me jealous. I had no interest in pursuing a career in business. My upbringing emphasized the values of hard work, honesty, and reliability. I was taught never to harbor jealousy toward others' success. Despite these principles, a certain sensitivity lingered within me, particularly concerning Susie. The memory of their first meeting and the way he touched her remains etched in my mind. Around 9 in the evening, my home phone rang. On my mobile, deciding to let it go to voicemail, I avoided speaking to my wife. Stress and a few beers fueled my decision. I feared uttering unpleasant words that I might later regret. Upon listening to the voicemail, the message conveyed an apology for an earlier exchange. The caller urged me to contact Susie, since I wouldn't be returning home soon. The message hinted at her going out alone, concluding with a cryptic remark, "It wasn't enough." As I began to recover from our earlier dispute, anger resurfaced. Pouring another beer, I consumed it hastily before setting out to find her. Checking all the town's bar parking lots proved futile. Her car was nowhere in sight. Suspecting she might be with someone familiar, I headed to Patty's, her best friend's house. To my dismay, Susie's car was parked there. Dave, Patty's husband, greeted me at the door, mentioning the night out and their decision to go bar hopping. When I inquired about Patty's car, he confirmed their presence at a bachelor party. Determined to locate them, I visited the bachelor's place, discovering Patty's car in the parking lot. Contemplating a direct confrontation with Susie, I opted to sober up in the car before taking any action. Around 11, they emerged from the bachelor's place and departed in Patty's car. Following at a discreet distance, they made their way to a downhill bar, as Dave had suggested. Observing from the parking lot, I anticipated their move to the next location. At precisely 11:30, they arrived at what seemed to be their final stop, a pub and a hotel. Concerned about Susie's intentions, I realized I needed to find out more. Attempting a makeshift disguise with a baseball cap and a plain t-shirt from the trunk, I sneaked into the pub. Despite not being completely sober, and my failed attempt at anonymity thanks to my name on the t-shirt, I figured it was better than no disguise at all. Inside, I spotted Susie with Bill seated at the back of the bar, engrossed in conversation. Seeking a discreet vantage point, I noticed an empty booth behind Susie. Silently moving there, I overheard their entire conversation, except for a few whispered moments. Susie thanked Bill for coming, and he reciprocated the sentiment. Bill reminisced about their time together 5 years ago and twice since my marriage to Susie. Their reunion tonight seemed driven by a desire for revenge after our earlier fight. As I listened, the painful truth unfolded. Susie had betrayed me twice before and planned to do so again tonight. Despite her professed love, her actions revealed a selfish and indifferent nature. Her motive wasn't love, it was revenge, shattering my perception of our relationship. The conversation left me devastated, and I realized I no longer loved her. It was a profound loss, and I nearly succumbed to tears, accepting that it was over. I waited, contemplating how much time would elapse before they proceeded to the room. The words exchanged between them hinted at Susie's readiness, and I could almost envision the smile on her face, aware of her presence. Based on their conversation, my anger simmered beneath the surface. As they stood up and made their way to the elevators, suppressing the urge to lash out physically, I trailed them to the lobby. Uncertain of their exact floor, I approached the receptionist and requested a call to Bill's room. He angrily answered, correcting my misconception that it was room 422, not 312. Threatening police involvement, he forcefully hung up the phone. Taking the elevator to the 4th floor, I approached room 422, eavesdropping until their actions became apparent. I knocked assertively, savoring the anticipation of disrupting their illicit rendezvous. Stepping back from the peephole, I forcefully slammed the door, causing the safety chain to break. The shocking scene revealed Bill with nothing on, and my wife on the bed. Her face turned pale as she screamed. Bill protested, exclaiming, "Oh my God, no!" As he recovered, he demanded my departure, threatening to summon security. Despite Susie's pleas, I sternly informed her not to return home. Surprisingly calm, I sat in the car for a while to calm down further. I waited to see if the police would show up or if Susie would leave with Bill. About 15 minutes later, Bill left the hotel and Susie got into her car. They didn't stay in the hotel room after I left, but the damage had been done. Adding insult to injury, or as they say, pouring gasoline on the fire, gave me an idea. I went home and went to bed. I'm not sure when the phone rang, but it was Patty calling. She explained that Susie was staying with Dave and her, so I shouldn't worry. I told Patty that I wouldn't worry about Susie anymore. I don't care. Patty woke me up unnecessarily. I asked about the time, and she said it was 3 a.m., claiming I couldn't say I didn't care, knowing I loved Susie and she loved me. Patty shared that Susie was at their place, crying about her mistakes tonight, wanting forgiveness, and asking to come back home. I informed Patty that Susie couldn't return home and asked about her previous involvement with Bill. Patty expressed relief for not having a serious hangover and mentioned being up since 8 a.m. By 10 a.m., I was ready to face Susie. I called Patty and told her Susie could come back home if she wanted. I stood at the entrance when Susie arrived, accompanied by Dave and Patty, probably to ensure no physical damage. Seeing a pile in the front yard, Susie asked what it was. I explained, "It's everything reminding us of each other, including gifts, photos, and old furniture. I set our wedding photo on fire as a symbolic act, signaling the end of our marriage. Flames quickly engulfed everything, leaving only ashes and charred furniture frames. I told Susie she won and hoped it was worth it. Our marriage is over, I said, and you can take everything. I don't want anything and hope not to remind you of me. You'll get details from my lawyer shortly." Shortly after, sirens approached. Police arrived and firefighters extinguished the remaining embers. I apologized for the trouble, clarifying that I burned the remnants of the marriage. I was taken into custody. As they led me away, I saw Susie crying. I spent a couple of days in jail, and a psychiatrist was called to assess my mental state. They discovered that I was distressed and devastated but still mentally sound. Surprisingly, they might have released me earlier, but they wanted to observe me for a few days just to be certain. I paid the bail and retrieved my car from the office parking lot where I had stored the things I wanted to keep, mainly clothes and personal items. Then my trial began, and I admitted guilt to all charges, receiving a $5,000 fine plus court costs. It was a small cost to end my shattered marriage. Susie contested the divorce persistently, leaving voicemails on my mobile pleading for forgiveness and reconciliation. Despite the $5,000 cost, I never heard from her after leaving a message on her home phone expressing that while she claimed it meant nothing to her, it meant everything to me. The divorce was finalized and I gave her everything she desired just to put it behind me. Bill's wife discovered the situation, divorced him, leaving him in a difficult situation. Susie wasn't the only wife he had comforted during marital troubles. A couple of weeks after finding him with his wife in a hotel room, I encountered Bill in a bar. I suggested he might face a serious accident when his divorce was finalized, and he started selling off his remaining possessions. Soon he left town, and not many people seemed to miss him. Occasionally, I bump into Susie on the streets, and she apologizes, asking if I'll call her to talk. I just nod and walk away. To this day, I haven't called her, though she continues to ask. Maybe someday I'll decide to call her. Story 2. My wife and I have been together for 2 decades. We first met during our freshman year of high school and have been inseparable ever since. We shared many milestones, from losing our purity to each other to attending prom and even going to the same college. After graduation, we got married and settled down to build our life together. Starting a family was always part of our plan, and when we secured good jobs, we decided to make that dream a reality. Fast forward 11 years, and we now have 2 kids, own our home, and are on a path to early retirement for travel and other experiences we've longed for. Everything seemed like a dream until tragedy struck. My sister-in-law was diagnosed with lung cancer. She was not just family, but also my wife's best friend. My wife supported her throughout her fight against the disease, but sadly, she eventually passed away. It was a devastating blow to our entire family, especially my wife. My sister-in-law was a beacon of light in our lives. My wife took it the hardest because they were incredibly close, sharing everything from shopping trips to personal secrets. I stood by my wife during her grief, helping her navigate through the toughest period of her life. After about 6 months, she started to recover. During her mourning, she read through her sister's journals and notebooks, trying to understand her emotions and provide support. What hit my wife deeply was the feeling that her sister hadn't accomplished enough in her life, taken too soon. Reading the journal entries made my wife realize her sister's unfulfilled aspirations. Motivated by her sister's untimely departure, my wife expressed a newfound determination to live life fully. She wanted to travel, experience skydiving, and savor every moment. I wholeheartedly supported this mindset, aligning with the reason I had been working 60 hours a week since college to retire early. In the coming weeks, my wife embraced this philosophy, taking pottery classes, teaching herself rock climbing, and even planning a bungee jumping adventure for her and our son. It seemed like she was fully embracing this new adventurous lifestyle. I didn't pay much attention to it. I felt happy for her as she was recovering from the loss of her sister. However, one evening, after she returned from the climbing gym, her behavior seemed different. Before that, she had been enthusiastic and positive about embracing a new chapter in her life. After dinner, when the kids were in their rooms, she took me out to the patio. We shared a couple of glasses of wine and gazed at the stars. Towards the end of our conversation, she brought up the idea of both of us having a hall pass. For those unfamiliar, a hall pass in a committed monogamous relationship is a one-time opportunity for both partners to have closeness with someone outside the relationship. I was completely taken aback by her suggestion. It seemed to come out of nowhere, so I asked her why she was bringing it up. She reassured me that she loved me, but felt like she might be missing out on a part of life because she had only ever been with me. She tried to phrase it in a way that wouldn't hurt me, but it was impossible not to feel terrible when she said that. I expressed my lack of support for the idea. We had been married for 20 years, and I couldn't understand why it suddenly became an issue. I had no desire to be with anyone else, and I wasn't comfortable with her being with someone else either. We were about to go back inside, but I paused and asked her if there was someone she was interested in. She hesitated to tell me the truth, but after a few moments, she admitted that there was someone at the climbing gym she found attractive. She mentioned he had been flirty and had recently invited her out for drinks, although she assured me that she declined and made it clear she was married. I went to bed that night feeling uneasy. It took a few days for me to come to terms with what she had suggested. I was deeply hurt, but eventually I forgave her, and we pretended the conversation never happened. About a week later, she told me about an outdoor climbing class offered by the gym, and she wanted to sign up for it. One Saturday, she left early in the morning for the class, or at least, that's what I thought. Since our daughter had started lying about her whereabouts, we asked her to leave her location on Snapchat maps for verification. That afternoon, when our daughter claimed she was going to a friend's house, I checked the maps. Everything seemed fine on our daughter's end, but I noticed my wife's avatar was in the heart of the city. I was a bit perplexed because I had been informed that she was heading to a park about 30 minutes outside of the city. Checking the location, I discovered she was at a bar. I tried to make sense of it, thinking she might be hanging out with people from the climbing gym after their climb. However, a sinking feeling in my gut couldn't be ignored. Recalling what she had mentioned about a guy from her climbing gym inviting her for drinks, wondering if she was there with him wasn't too much of a stretch. I was home alone, and the bar happened to be about a 15-minute walk from the house, so I took the dog for a walk, keeping an eye on the map. Upon reaching the bar, I peered through the windows and saw my wife sitting at a table with a man, leaning close and smiling as they chatted. The man reached across the table, holding my wife's hand, and she allowed it. While hand-holding isn't necessarily cheating, it hinted at something more. I went home before my wife spotted me there and waited for her return. Throughout the wait, I was undecided on whether to confront her or investigate on my own. When she came home, and before saying anything to me, she went straight to the shower. I tried to initiate a conversation, but she dismissed me, citing post-climbing sweat. This confirmed in my mind that something had happened while she was with that man. She had left her gym bag near our bed, and I noticed her phone was still inside. I pulled it out and searched for information about the man. Checking her text messages, I found a chat with an unsaved number starting about a week before she asked me about the hall pass. Scanning through the messages for keywords indicating an affair, I found a few exchanged pictures and explicit messages. Then I saw plans for them to meet at the bar, even coming up with a lie to tell me and his partner. I had no idea who the guy was, but I discovered him by checking the climbing gym social media, where he was clearly featured in some pictures. He was tagged in everything, and through some digging, I learned he was married with a newborn baby. I was disgusted by what I discovered. Hurt doesn't even begin to describe the pain I felt. I had been with my wife for 20 years, and she was willing to throw all of that away because she wanted to be with another man. I was furious and utterly disgusted by the reprehensible actions of both of them. At the end of their message chain, there was the name of a restaurant along with a date and time. A week had passed since I found out my wife was cheating on me, and I devised a plan to catch her in the act. While contemplating it, I realized that the wife of her affair partner deserved to know as well. On the day of the planned meeting, I sent a dozen roses to the partner's wife, including details about the restaurant on the card. I hoped it would make her believe he had a surprise for her. Waiting outside the restaurant, I observed her heading in. I followed her inside, and we both noticed our partners holding hands simultaneously. She hurried over and started yelling at him in front of everyone. My wife was surprised to see me, but she quickly got up, insisting it wasn't what it seemed. I asked her to explain the text messages, and she fell silent. I informed her that I was ending our relationship and that she could expect to see me in court. We spent the next 8 months in a divorce battle, mainly over custody. Both of us wanted primary custody, but we ended up with joint custody. I kept the house, and she received no spousal payments. Her affair partner also divorced and had to pay child support and alimony to his ex. My ex-wife and I recently finalized the divorce proceedings, and we are finally done with each other. I honestly don't know how to move forward, having only been with one woman and feeling betrayed. I'm unsure about the next steps. Story 3. My girlfriend and I were together for 3 years before everything fell apart. I believe she was the one and planned to marry her, but she cheated on me with my cousin. It all began when we met at a nightclub 3 years ago. She was the hottest woman there, and I didn't think I had a chance, but I tried anyway. Surprisingly, she was interested, and we've been together since. She moved into my apartment a year and a half into our relationship, and I didn't question it because I was deeply in love. Then, my cousin, who used to live down south, got a job in New York. I helped him get an apartment in my building, excited to have family close by. We were good friends, often playing games online. I thought it would be nice having family nearby. Once he settled in, we hung out quite often. He never hid that he found my girlfriend attractive, but I never thought he'd act on his feelings. I never noticed anything going on between them while I was around. They respected each other's space. A few months after he moved in, I was grabbing coffee with a friend, and my cousin showed up with his new girlfriend, who happened to be my girlfriend's work friend. We had tried to set them up at a party, but it didn't seem to be going well. They were keeping things low profile, not wanting to pressure their relationship. Finding it amusing, I wanted to surprise my girlfriend with the news. I texted her to come to the cafe for a surprise, but she replied that she couldn't because she was hanging out with her friend. Ironically, the friend she claimed to be with was sitting across from me at the cafe. She lied about her whereabouts, and I, in turn, lied to my friends about her having a migraine. When I got home, she was nowhere to be seen. However, I noticed makeup on the bed, and she had clearly tried on a couple of outfits. I felt really nervous, thinking something was going on that I didn't know about and I needed to talk to someone. I walked down the hall to chat with my cousin. Despite loud music playing in the background, I knocked on the door persistently until he heard me. After some shuffling, he opened the door, trying to dismiss it by saying he had company and would come over later. Once again, I had no reason to believe my girlfriend was cheating on me with my cousin, so I didn't assume it was her in there. It only dawned on me when I saw a shirt I bought her for her birthday on the arm of the couch behind my cousin. I played it cool, nodded my head, and returned to my apartment. Immediately once there, I searched for any other signs of cheating. Eventually, I went into her laptop, checking her Facebook messages with my cousin. Doing that completely shattered my heart. In the messages, my cousin asked her what she liked about me. She mentioned finding me funny with a good personality, but he insisted I wasn't her type, claiming he was. My girlfriend didn't disagree. They were extremely flirty, and at one point she messaged him the classic, "just got out of the shower" message. After that, they exchanged suggestive pictures with very explicit messages. Earlier that day, my cousin had messaged her, expressing his inability to stop thinking about her and his need to be with her. He instructed her to come up with an excuse to visit his apartment, and she did. Realizing it was over between my girlfriend and me, I decided to cut my cousin off entirely from my life, leaving no trace for everyone I knew. I captured screenshots of everything I saw, sending them to myself just in case my girlfriend attempted to lie. Fortunately, my name was on the lease and hers wasn't. Since she moved into my apartment, this meant I could at least kick her out. When she came home a few hours later, I immediately told her to leave. Confused, she asked why, and I revealed that I had discovered her involvement with my cousin. I insisted she vacate the apartment or face legal action. I left for the night, giving her a 48-hour notice to leave. During my absence, both she and my cousin called me numerous times, but I ignored every call. Meanwhile, I gathered all my relatives in a group chat and disclosed everything about the situation. Everyone, including my cousin's parents, expressed deep disappointment and offered apologies, though they weren't directly involved. I received several messages from my cousin, calling me a coward and claiming family members labeled him a pig. I didn't care, he was indeed a pig. Since my girlfriend and I shared many friends, I created a group chat and informed them of the incident. They were shocked and firmly sided with me. Some girls in the chat revealed that my girlfriend had tried to call them, seeking a place to stay. Despite feeling bad, they declined as they didn't believe her actions were justified. Returning 2 days later, I found my girlfriend had left the apartment. Unsure of her whereabouts, I discovered that she stayed with my cousin. However, their personalities clashed and he kicked her out after a week. After that, I lost track of where she went. I guess I learned that you really can't put your trust in just anyone, not even family. I'm Jason, and I had a 5-year relationship with my ex-girlfriend Bella. We met at a unisex salon where she worked as a hairdresser, and we hit it off from the start. Although I liked her initially, I never expected our connection to grow into a deep love. After several visits to the salon, I gathered the courage to ask for her number, and she agreed. Since we were already familiar with each other, the typical story unfolded. We went out, got to know each other, and eventually fell in love. Our decision to not rush into settling down early stemmed from my past heartbreak with an ex-girlfriend. I wanted to take things slow with Bella. After 5 years of dating, I felt it was time to make our commitment official. 2 months before the wedding, Bella surprised me with the news that she was pregnant. While it wasn't part of our original plan, I welcomed it as a blessing. Initially, Bella and I had agreed to wait 3 to 4 years after marriage to have a child. She had experienced 2 fetuses lost in the past, and I wanted to avoid that for her. Despite the unexpected joy of impending parenthood, planning a wedding and expecting a child simultaneously wasn't easy. Bella insisted on the grand wedding she had always dreamed of, with an expensive venue, gown, and other costly elements. While she had saved money for the wedding, I thought it made more sense to allocate our budget toward securing a home for our growing family and addressing other essential needs. However, she believed in making our wedding a once-in-a-lifetime event, arguing that we had many years ahead to focus on our child. After considering her perspective, we proceeded with the wedding she envisioned. We booked the venue, paid for the cake she desired, and she covered expenses like her gown, hairdo, and other necessities with her bridesmaids. Despite my internal reservations, I was genuinely excited about the upcoming events. I was about to marry the woman I loved, and I was thrilled that, in our 5 years of dating, she had never betrayed my trust. I thought she was a faithful partner who would stay true to me as we aged together. Unfortunately, I was mistaken. I delved too deeply into the future while my present was already a mess. Unbeknownst to me, as I smoothly planned our wedding and invested my savings to create her dream ceremony, Bella was cheating on me with someone close. I wouldn't have discovered this if her jealous lover hadn't confessed the night before our wedding. That evening, as I returned home early to prepare for my bachelor party, my best man called, requesting a meeting to share something important. We agreed to meet at a nearby coffee shop. When we sat down, he looked uneasy, apologized in advance, and said he needed to get something off his chest. I feared he might cancel on me the night before my wedding, but what he revealed was worse. He disclosed his history with Bella, claiming he loved her too much to witness our marriage. At first, I thought it was a prank, searching for hidden cameras or friends recording us. However, he showed me a sensual picture of him and Bella, and my heart sank. He also shared a text from Bella about sneaking into her hotel room later that night before our wedding. Seeing that message dispelled all my doubts, and I tried to contain my hurt as a man, but tears welled up. The revelations continued. He admitted to being responsible for Bella's pregnancy. They planned for her to tell me it was mine, avoiding suspicion and preventing a breakup. At that moment, my world seemed to come to a standstill. Countless thoughts raced through my mind, making it tough to accept that the woman I loved and held high expectations for in our relationship was carrying my best man's child. I was furious, imagining if my anger were visible, my best man would have seen smoke. When I'd heard enough, I exploded in anger, throwing the chair I sat on and storming out. Trying to control my rage, I punched him when he followed and grabbed my arm. Then I drove off in my car. I called the wedding venue to cancel, managing to get home without crossing any limits. Once there, I cried intensely, devastated by Bella's treacherous betrayal. While still mourning, she called about canceling the venue, and from my voice, she sensed my distress. I didn't sugarcoat it. I told her I knew everything, officially calling off the wedding. It took her a moment to grasp, and as she realized I was aware, she cried and begged over the phone all night. Despite my insistence that I wanted nothing to do with her, she kept calling. I avoided sleeping at home, expecting her attempts to beg in person. She even suggested we still get married and sort things out afterward, fearing the shame of a last-minute cancellation, especially after boasting to her friends. Our wedding never happened, and I can't forgive her for what she did. All my efforts and sacrifices of 5 years vanished. I yearn for legal recourse for heartbreaks and infidelity, wishing to drag her to court to make her pay for the wasted years and pain she caused. We haven't seen each other, and she lacked the courage to face me after I called off the wedding. I moved into the house I rented for us as a surprise, healing and moving forward daily. Surprisingly, my former close friend and best man tried to apologize and explain their affair, but I wasn't interested. I told him we could no longer be friends, and he had no place in my life. Since then, we haven't made contact, and I'll never speak to him again. Considering it childish, I don't care. Bella didn't keep his child, she aborted it as payback, and they are no longer together. I've learned my lesson and won't love deeply again. At times, I wish I had invested my resources and sacrifices in my life, a far better use than wasting them on a promiscuous woman. But as they say, where there is life, there is hope.